Quick test. Picture the company that's gone all in on AI, automated everything it can, deployed it across every department, leaned in as hard as possible. What does its headcount look like right now? Shrinking, obviously. That's the whole point of automation, isn't it? Fewer people doing more work. Here's the problem. That's not what's actually happening. PwC just analysed over 1 billion job postings across 27 countries to find out, and the companies most exposed to AI aren't shrinking their workforce. They're growing it faster than everyone else, hiring 52% more people since 2018, compared to 36% at companies barely using AI at all. The companies betting hardest on AI are also the ones hiring the most. That's not a coincidence, and once you see the mechanism behind it, it actually makes complete sense. This is the frontier economy. Let's look at why. Start with what PwC actually found, because the scale of this is bigger than a marginal difference. Companies in the most AI-exposed sectors grew headcount 52% since 2018. The least AI-exposed companies grew 36% over the same period. That's not AI companies barely surviving the transition. That's AI companies outpacing everyone else at the one thing automation is supposed to threaten most directly: the size of their workforce. Wages tell the same story. Pay grew 24% at the most AI-exposed companies versus 17% at the least exposed. The companies using AI most aggressively are paying their people more, not less. And there's a smaller group inside that data that makes the pattern even sharper. PwC identifies a tier of superstar companies, the top 20% of AI-exposed businesses, who posted labor productivity growth of 163% relative to 2018. That's nearly 5 times the average for AI-intensive companies generally. These are the businesses that figured out how to actually extract value from AI, not just install it. And they're not the ones cutting deepest. They're pulling ahead on hiring and pay at the same time they're pulling ahead on productivity. If automation worked the way the popular narrative assumes, replace a worker, save the salary, repeat, this data should look the opposite of how it actually looks. So either the popular narrative is wrong, or these companies are doing something specific that breaks the pattern. It's the second one, and PwC's report tells you exactly what that something is. Here's the actual mechanism in PwC's own framing. The companies seeing the biggest returns from AI aren't using it only to cut costs. They're using it to amplify human performance and create new forms of value. That's a meaningful distinction worth sitting with, because there are really 2 different ways a company can respond to a new productivity tool, and they lead to opposite outcomes. Path 1. Treat AI purely as a cost-cutting tool. You automate a task, you need fewer people to do the same amount of work, you reduce headcount, you bank the savings. This is the version everyone assumes is happening everywhere, and it's certainly happening somewhere, but on its own, this path doesn't grow a company. It shrinks it, carefully. Path 2. Treat AI as a growth tool. You automate the routine part of a task, which frees up your existing people's time and attention. And instead of cutting those people, you point them at new work the company couldn't previously afford to do. New markets, new products, new customer segments. The cost savings from automation get reinvested into expansion, not extracted as savings. PwC's data says the companies pulling ahead are running path 2. Far from being a job killer, the report states plainly, AI may actually be a job expander when used to unlock growth and enter new markets. That single idea explains nearly everything else in this report. A company cutting costs doesn't need 52% more people. A company entering new markets does. This isn't evenly distributed. Some sectors show this pattern far more sharply than others, and the specifics are worth knowing if you're trying to figure out where your own industry sits. Technology, media, and telecommunications lead all sectors in AI hiring intensity. Nearly 1 in 8 new job roles in that sector is now AI-related. Professional services is right behind it. Consumer markets stands out for a different reason. AI-enabled roles there carry the highest wage premiums of any sector PwC studied, in some cases exceeding 100% above standard pay. There's also a quieter example worth knowing, because it cuts against the assumption that this is purely a tech industry story. Energy, utilities, and resources has lower overall AI exposure than sectors like tech or finance, but it's hiring more AI-skilled workers and paying strong wage premiums for them anyway. Even in a sector where AI touches a smaller share of the actual work, the people who can use it well are becoming more valuable, not less needed. Across all of this, demand for AI-specific skills, things like applied machine learning, not just comfortable with software, is growing about 8 times faster than the job market overall. The average wage premium for those skills has climbed to 62% above standard pay, up from 57% the year before. The market isn't just rewarding companies for using AI. It's specifically rewarding the people inside those companies who know how to make it actually work. If you're running a team, a department, or a company, and you're trying to figure out your own AI strategy, this report draws a fairly sharp line between what's working and what isn't. The companies underperforming on this data are very likely the ones treating AI purely as a headcount reduction tool, automate, cut, repeat, and stopping there. That approach isn't necessarily wrong in isolation, but on its own, it caps out. There's only so much you can shrink before there's nothing left to cut, and PwC's data suggests it's not the strategy correlated with the strongest growth. The companies outperforming are the ones asking a different question entirely. Not how many people can we remove, but what can we now afford to attempt that we couldn't before? New markets, new products, work that used to be too expensive to take on, suddenly within reach because the routine parts got faster. That reframing is what turns a cost-saving tool into a growth engine, and it's the difference between the 36% headcount group and the 52% headcount group in this data. None of this means layoffs tied to AI aren't real. They are, and they're making headlines for a reason. But the aggregate picture, the one drawn from over 1 billion job postings, doesn't support AI shrinks companies as a general rule. It supports something more specific. AI rewards companies that use it to grow and quietly penalizes the ones that only ever used it to shrink. That's the frontier. Back to your inbox.